Hey guys, so my name's Caleb, and this is my new YouTube channel. Um, this channel is basically going to just be about people who maybe want to restore an old vehicle that may not necessarily have tons of money to throw at it. I myself do not. Um, this one's going to be my first one actually, and if y'all don't care, let's take a walk and look around at what we got here. So what we have here is a 1972, and it's a Ford F100. This truck, a little bit of history on it, was sitting for 25 plus years, and I recently pulled it out of where it was sitting at. It's a little crusty inside and out. It's got a few dents here and there, but ultimately, this truck is a pretty decent little truck. The guy said he got a newer truck, just wasn't going to be driving this one anymore, so I took it off his hands. Everybody was super surprised I was able to get him to sell anything. Got a pretty straight tailgate here, nice solid bumper. Trust me, that's solid because it pulled it out of that hole. Body lines are pretty straight. It's got its dings and dents, but we do have one good solid dent up here, and I don't know if y'all can see that on camera, but that's a pretty deep dent. Only got 2 of the 4 tires to air up. The other 2, they were a little bit too beaten down and wore out. So underneath the hood here, guy told me he put a Mustang 5.0 down in here. Basically all that I've done so far is I've went through, made sure that the crank does turn. So this motor is not locked up, but you can see that it has been sitting for a while. Everything's pretty crusty under here. Went to the part store, got a few little parts there. We're gonna try and throw in it, see what happens. We're gonna see if we can get this truck to fire up today. What do y'all think? Think we can do it? Alright, so first things first, let's make sure we get all these spark plugs out. Whenever I was turning the motor over, it was really stiff. Being that it's sat 25 plus years, first thing I want to do is get a little bit of transmission fluid down inside the cylinders. It's got a little bit of detergent to it. It'll help free up those piston rings that's been sitting for a long time. Plus, it'll also give us a good indication of how this motor was running before it got parked. One thing about it, I'm not going to trust anything about this motor simply off of somebody else's word. I'm going to make sure I go through it, look at everything, make sure that everything's good, and then we'll start trying to start it. But first things first, I want to make sure that these rings are loosened up. So we're going to put a little bit of transmission ATF fluid down in there, and we'll go from there. First thing to do, pull that, put our socket on here, get that off. So I do sense a lot of fuel in this one. There's a good amount of carbon buildup, which is good. The needle there, if it'll focus, the gaps are good. So is the spark plug. These spark plugs are not in super bad health. They should be fine to run it. But we're going to go ahead and take them all out, and I'll get back to you after that. Alright, I'm going to be putting a concoction of PB Blaster and also some transmission fluid. Just my own little cocktail of some stuff to help get those rings a little loosened up. and then we're going to put all that in the cylinders, and then after that we're going to get down there on the ground and start cranking this motor over and letting that stuff kind of work its way in. So start out with some PB Blaster. Let me get on the other side. Start out with some PB Blaster. There's one. And now the other side of the motor over there, those over there were a little bit worse for wear. They were pretty rusted in there. We'll get this done and then we'll jump back on camera. So FYI, that can be very messy. Trying to get transmission fluid pushed into a hole that on this side you can barely see, and you actually kind of have to helicaler it. But pro tip, if you get an old, ketchup bottle or mustard bottle or something, and then you get you a piece of little fuel line here, you can stick it on that and it'll kind of work like a funnel. If I had a tiny funnel, I'd probably use it, but didn't have one at the moment, so work with what you got. Guys, this channel, I'm not going to have the latest greatest tools. Honestly, I'm working with hand tools right now. Don't have any electric impacts, none of that. So this is very down to earth. Hoping eventually I can get those, but little by little we'll start doing more and more to this truck, and hopefully y'all are going to stay along for the journey. So I've got the transmission fluid and PB Blaster put down in those cylinders where the spark plugs were. Next I'm going to get a ratchet and put it down there on the crank, and I'm going to start turning that motor. Alright guys, so after getting down there and cranking on that, it was a little tight at first. It's starting to loosen up a little bit. Remember, there's no spark plugs in it, so it's not building any compression. So it should be fairly easy to turn. There's a little tight spot, and that does kind of worry me a little bit. But we're going to let that sit down in there. We're going to add a little bit more. We're going to let it sit overnight. Probably won't get this cranked up today, but we're going to have a good foundation for tomorrow. So next, what I want to do is I want to take off the air filter here, which it's a little crusty. Not sure how long it's been sitting on here, but it's got a little bit of rust on it, and it did not have an air filter in it. I took it off whenever I looked at the truck. There was a rat nest in there. You can still see part of it in there, and you can actually see a hole in the bottom of it right there. So this right here probably won't be salvageable. I'll probably end up throwing this away, and we'll get something else to sit on top of that carburetor. Let's check this carburetor out. So it looks like we got a 2-barrel here. This is Motocraft. It's a 2100 series. Very common on the 70s models, if on the 5.0s, which that's what this is. This is a 5.0 Ford motor. Looks like we are seized up. Nothing at all turns. The throttle cable's solid. Well, might have a little something. Definitely no accelerator pump, but cable does move. So this thing's been sitting for 25 plus years. Being that there's a rat nest up there, I'm gonna say that likely that thing is filled up with rat pee and everything else, and probably corroded it to the point that it's needing rebuilt. I guess first things first, we'll spray it down with a little bit of PB Blaster. Get some of those bolts loosened up there. We'll take those off, and we'll get this thing pulled out and see if we can rebuild it. So I got, oh, hang on, train. That thing honks way too much. We got a 7/16 here. We're gonna take all these nuts out. I guess first things first, we should probably take this fuel line loose. If anybody lives next to train tracks, y'all know the struggle. There's literally a train coming through here all the time, so y'all have to bear with me on it. I can't control the train. Definitely tell somebody else that's been in here, because they've probably rounded that off, and instead of fixing it, they just threw a line on there. So I got a little bit of flex pipe in here, or a little flex line. See if we can get that out. Oh wow. There we go. That is so corroded. It literally just broke loose. Oh my god. It's literally breaking into chunks. That's how old this is. It's hard as a rock. Oh dear. What have I gotten myself into? Oh man, okay. Let me go get a wrench. I can't get that in the socket. Alright, let's get this thing off of here. And I don't have a whole lot of room to move. I'll be back. There's 4 bolts here that I've got to take loose that hold it down to the intake. Once I get those off, I'll be right back. Alright, so all I loosened up was this fuel line here. There's 4 nuts all the way around the base of the carburetor. There's the throttle linkage, and then there's also another cable right there you got to take loose. And then there's a tube that goes from the exhaust manifolds up to the electric choke there. So once you get all those out, you should be able to pull up. I got to take the whole thing right there stuck. And then here you go. You got your carburetor there. A little tuber. Oh wow. Stuff dumping out of it right now. So you can see in here, looks pretty crusty. For some reason, whoever put this in here, these bolts on this side, no big deal. A little bit more frustrating, but there you go. Once you get that all off, you can go through and start working on getting this tore down. So after getting everything off, we can see here that whoever had this base plate on here as well. And then there's your intake. So once you get all that off, you'll now have your carburetor. And you can see here they've got, are those gaskets stacked? I should just, okay, there we go. You got your base plate gasket. I don't know what this came out of. Oh, came out of there. You got these little things here. So we can see this is pretty crusty. And these are identification plates right here. So basically, if you don't know what carburetor you have, most time you're going to have a base plate on these. If you clean that up a little bit, You read the numbers on it. This is a Motocraft 2100 2-barrel carburetor. I've got lots of things to try and clean up on this thing. Got to get this old fuel line off. It's all broken. Try to get this out. I'll take this top plate off. I had to take the accelerator pump out and all that. And then once we get all this cleaned up here, we'll get it put back together and we'll get it put back on there. So after we got into this carburetor here, we can see that it's got a lot of buildup, whether it's dirt and dust and everything. I was looking here at where the float is. It looks like liquid down there, doesn't it? That's solid. So we've definitely got to do a deep clean on this one. You can see here I'm pulling up dirt and stuff. This thing is well dirty. I'm most likely gonna have to like pressure wash this or find somebody with a tank to actually submerge this in. This is not gonna be easy to clean up by no means. This may be like a 4-day project right here, just because of how dirty it is. Definitely gonna have to look into this, make sure everything's okay working here, and then also I have to take off all this stuff. This is just this right here is just where that positive crankcase ventilation comes out. Now I do want to say this. I don't always know what I'm doing, okay? A lot of times I'm winging it. I have a fundamental knowledge of everything that's going on here, but if you guys have any recommendations, if y'all want to correct me on something and say, hey, you know, this tube doesn't do that, or hey, this is called this, the more that I can learn, the happier I'll be. So if there's something that y'all want to sit there and say, hey, you know, next time try this instead of this, you know, I'm more than welcome to open comments, open recommendations. And guys, this ain't gonna be a fast process. I see some other YouTubers that do this kind of stuff. I'm not that good. I'm just gonna let you know now. So this is gonna be a little bit of a slow process, but bear with me. We'll get this thing cleaned up, and whenever we do, we'll put it back on the truck. Alright guys, so quick update on rebuilding this carburetor here. Can y'all see that? This is how gummed up this thing is. Come on, focus. It ain't gonna focus, is it? This thing is so gummed up that you literally can't even, like, it is plugged. Let's see here, I got another one. This is your jets. They sit right down here in the bottom of this bowl right here. And I mean, they are clogged. I'm honestly thinking I'm gonna have to put this thing in the dishwasher or something at this point. Like, it's caked on there everywhere down in there, dude. It's just, look. I've not ever, and the check ball that normally sits down here underneath this little pin here, yeah, it ain't coming out. So this may be this is going to be difficult for sure. Update part 2 on this carburetor rebuild. Taking off, I'm on the bottom part here now, working on it, taking it loose. And I noticed that, hey, my mixer screws here. I said, you know what? Might ought to check this. Yeah, look at this. This is how I found it. I did not turn this at all. Literally found it just like this. It was just sitting in there. I don't know if it's rusted out. No, it screws in there. But they had this thing backed out so much that I literally just pulled it straight out. This one here. Oh yeah. Yeah, that wasn't going to do much good like that. Of course, I'm going to have to retune this carburetor anyways after the rebuild I do on it. But
Yeah, those mixture screws, they ain't gonna hold too well doing like that. Somebody literally had these things maxed out. Alright guys, we're almost done disassembling this. We've got it down to bare bones. So this right here is pretty seized up. I don't know if it's going to come off. And then also these fins here are not moving. I've gotten everything else out. You can see the power valve there, how it's eat up with all sorts of corrosion and gummed up fuel. You can see in the bottom here the bowl. If you look real close, you can see these jets, how clogged up they are. Literally, it looks like you can see through them, but you can't. Got the fuel filter out of it, and all the linkages seem to be moving except for this one here. This one here does not move. Now this one here does. This one here does not, though. This is your throttle. Whenever this moves, basically what happens is it opens these up, and these right here squirt fuel in. But that is where we're seized up at. So I'm gonna put some penetrating oil to it. You can see all the junk that's come out of this just since I've been trying to take it apart. And I've got all my pieces separated out here to get them cleaned up as well. Top of the carburetor here, looks like that vent is opening and closing like it should. Still have to take this out. Not real sure what this is. Make sure it's operating correctly. But yeah, that's where we're at, and I think that's going to be it for tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Alright, so it's been a few days. Had Thanksgiving yesterday, so I was eating a lot then. Yesterday I tinkered around a little bit, got the carburetor completely put back together. I can't get the choke, the automatic choke that's put on there. I can't get it put together until I get a piece in. That's going to take 4 or 5 days. But I'm going to try to push past that, go ahead and get this thing started today. So what I've done is I've put the carburetor on by itself since this last video, or last part of the video. I've also taken the fuel line loose and left the old filter on. What I'm going to try to do is cycle some gas through that line, clean whatever's in there out first. I've got a new filter. We're going to put it on. After we get all this cleaned out, I've got a jug of gas sitting here on the ground. We're going to try to pull that up through the old pump, see if we can get that old fuel pump going. Also, something else that's changed. Hang on a second. I've also went through and put in a new battery. We need that to get the truck started up, and the only cable that I had was this one, which, you know, honestly looks a little worse for wear. So what I did was put a new power cable on. I cleaned up these points here, cleaned up all of these. I took these wires loose. I put a ground down there on the block so that we have a ground cable. It didn't come with one, but I put one on there. We still need to put the spark plugs back in after we try, and I haven't tried to crank this yet. I've just got the battery hooked up here. I haven't tried any of the headlights or nothing. I just put the battery in there. I thought I might wait for y'all to try this out. We've got a little bottle here to catch any fluid we have coming through that old fuel line. I put a fuel line down there at the bottom. Old gas can down there to collect the old gas that spilled out. We're gonna put new can in there, put a line in there, let that cycle some gas through this line here, clean it out. Then we'll put the filter on this carburetor here that I rebuilt, which is fully functional now. We'll prop that door open there.
It's pretty warm outside today. Shouldn't need a choke, really. Once I get the choke in, I'll actually have to put all this back on. There's a whole piece that goes here. But yeah, let's get this put on. All right, before we put our spark plugs back in there, we're gonna turn the key and see what happens. I don't know if y'all are as nervous as I am, but I'm pretty nervous. Y'all tell me what happens. Right. It actually turned over. I'm astonished. So no, it sounds a little weird because the spark plugs aren't in it. It's not building any compression right now. It's just turning the motor. That's all it's doing. Now I'm gonna put some spark plugs in there. I'm gonna clean them up a little bit with a wire brush. I'm gonna stick them back in there and put the wires back on and make sure the firing order is correct. Probably should take that spark plug off and see if we're actually getting any fire to the coil. After that, we'll see if we can actually crank it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to make sure that this coil is firing. I'm going to angle the camera here and show the coil plug there, and y'all tell me if y'all see it fire. Firing. Y'all see any spark? So it seems like we're not getting spark. I took the spark plug out, tried to see if I could get it to fire. I'm not getting any fire to the spark plugs. So what I'm gonna do is, I'll take that loose. I'm actually gonna take all these wires loose at some point, make sure they're correct, just to be sure. But what I wanna do is, that cap's on there. Take this cap loose. Oh yeah, all the goodies there. Honestly, inside the cap don't look too bad. Not really corroded. We'll take a screwdriver to it and we'll get some sandpaper and we'll sand on these points here. I don't know if y'all can see them. Let's see. So right here we have a set of points, and I'm not really going to touch that because I've still got a hot battery there. Also going to check, make sure this is real sanded good. Make sure this is sanded good so that it fires the way it's supposed to. And we'll see if we can get some spark going. Alrighty guys. So I've got key on right now. I've got the battery hooked up. Yes, I took the battery cables off before I started cleaning these points. Now these right here are what the points are. Okay, they're just two little pieces of metal, and basically, whenever I separate these, you'll see a little spark. Let's see. May not be able to see that. Let me try to zoom in a little bit more. Oh no. Alright. Probably could be loosened, or probably could be cleaned up a little bit more. Oh, big spark there. So basically I'm having spark now, but what I want to do is I want to make sure that spark is coming out of my cap. So let's work on getting that done. Let's sand this cap a little bit. Make sure points are getting hit. Make sure we got some spring to our cap here. I'm gonna take this loose so I don't get shocked. Alright, got our cap on there. Let's put our cap back on. Alright, there's the front. And the back is caught on something. There you go. Alright. Now, let's make sure. Put a spark plug in. We'll ground it to something. And we'll see if we can get something to spark. Alright, I'm gonna put this. There ain't too many good places to ground anything on this motor, to be honest. But we're gonna try our best. So we're gonna zoom in there, see if our spark plug is getting any fire to it. Alright, y'all watch for me. I'll help if I hook the battery back up. Y'all see me spark? Alrighty guys, so I went through, made sure each plug was tightened in, made sure every wire goes to the correct place in the cap there. I made sure I have spark. Now I don't believe that my fuel pump is working. All the times that I've cranked it over, I've not had anything come in through the cup yet. Could just need to cycle over some more, I don't know. But what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to put some carbon choke cleaner down the throat of the carburetor there, and we'll see what fires off. Alright, like I say, I don't need the choke at the moment. Should have plenty of warm air. Oh, I can feel it. It wants to. Come on, baby, stay running long enough for me to get back up here to you. Alright, let's give that starter a break here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the bowl off and I'm going to put some gas down in there. Just to kind of help it along, help it cycle through a little bit. Alright guys, so I got some gas poured in the bowl there. Now, I poured some gas in there because, well, it's honestly been just rebuilt. So, right now, it didn't have any fuel primed in it. Let me prime that a few times there.
She ain't wanting to light off. Let's give her a little persuasion. Guys, she is not happy, but she is trying. Let's try her again. Oh, come on. She is not wanting to help me out here. Oh, you giving me that little mess. Come on now. Make Daddy happy. Come on. Oh man, let me get an extra hand to help me out here. I'll be right back. Alrighty guys, I ain't got an extra set of hands to help me, but we're gonna try it again. See what we can't get to happen. That ain't good. Ooh, starter wanted to keep going. Oh, we got gas now. After it spat out some nastiness. Oh, goodness gracious. All the trash in that. That's some nasty fuel. I don't know if y'all can see it, but there's all sorts of trash down there at the bottom. That's why we want to run it through a bottle first. Make sure we ain't pumping that into our freshly built carburetor. Now what we can do is we can actually throw a new fuel filter on here. I'll probably have to get another one in the future sometime soon. But I can go ahead and put a fuel filter on here and hook that back up to the carburetor. And from then there, well, we need to figure out why it wanted to keep cranking even after I let off the key, because I'd actually turned the key all the way back off and it was still trying to crank. So that tells me that that starter's getting a little sticky. We're gonna get down there with a hammer, hit it a few times, see if maybe it's just not disengaging good enough, and then I'll be back once I get all that done. Alright guys, so turns out that the starter wouldn't turn off because of the solenoid. I tapped on it, got it to stop. Ultimately, it kept doing it. So let's try it one more time, see if we can get this thing up and running. So we got it running. That's amazing. This thing sat for 25 plus years in one spot. And all I've done is put a little bit different, got some steam. That's okay. It's just some of that PB blaster burning off. All I did was put a solenoid on it, a battery in it, some battery cables, redid the carb. That's it. Everything else is just the way I found it. You just can't beat these old trucks. I mean, if you know a little bit of what you're doing, like I do, I just know a little bit, you can get these things up and running. That's how simple they are. And I am just tickled to death. Man, I got this thing up and running. And it only took me about 2 days. Now granted, these are days starting about noon. It gets dark at like 4:35. So if you dedicated one full day towards this, ignore that. You could have this thing up and running in 1 day. Let me take y'all to the back and let y'all see back there. All right, one more time. Let's get this thing started. So it won't stay running, but even though that it won't stay running, a few little tweaks on the carburetor, maybe make sure I got a little bit better spark. Who knows? This thing could run and drive down the road tomorrow. And that's crazy to think that after 25 plus years, this old girl still wants to go. Just amazing. If y'all don't care, I've worked hard on this video. This is my first video that I've ever made. If y'all don't care, leave me a like. Leave me a subscribe to my channel. If you have any comments, any kind of recommendations, kudos, thumbs ups, let's try to keep hate out of it. But you know, anything positive, anything you want to comment it on there. Like my video, share it with a friend, whatever you want to do. Because the more that we can do this, the more that we can have other people on this journey with us. So that'll be it for today, guys. Wait till the next video.